For the last 12 days, Alexei Navalny has been confined to this Berlin hospital in an induced coma while he's being treated for chemical poisoning.
Прекрасную Россию!
Navalny has made lots of enemies in Russia, daring to stand against Vladimir Putin for election and spending years exposing corruption at the highest levels of the state. Now the German government says it has proof beyond doubt that he was attacked with the chemical nerve agent Novichok last month.
Alexei Navalny wurde Opfer eines Angriffs.
Alexei Navalny was the victim of an attack with a chemical nerve agent of the Novichok group. This poison could be identified unequivocally in tests, so it's clear that Alexei Navalny is the victim of a crime. He was supposed to be silenced, and I, together with the entire German government, condemn this in the strongest possible terms.
Alexei Navalny fell ill not long after he was photographed drinking a cup of tea at Tomsk airport in Siberia. He then boarded his flight back to Moscow, but his fellow passengers could hear him groaning with excruciating pain. His plane made an emergency landing and he was treated at this Siberian hospital, where his supporters campaigned for his safe release because his doctors repeatedly ruled out poisoning and wouldn't let him travel. Navalny's wife, Yulia, claimed they were simply buying time, waiting for the chemical agent to disappear from his body. Eventually, a German charity medically evacuated him to Berlin after Chancellor Merkel intervened. This attack is all the more brazen because Novichok was also used against the former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter in Salisbury in 2018. They survived after being treated with atropine, the same antidote being used by Navalny's doctors. Though Dawn Sturgis died after she inadvertently sprayed herself with this discarded perfume bottle containing the nerve agent, a chemical only ever manufactured in Russia. These two men, believed to be officers working for Russian military intelligence, or the GRU, were later charged in their absence with attempted murder.
The GRU is a highly disciplined organisation with a well-established chain of command. So this was not a rogue operation. It was almost certainly also approved outside the GRU at a senior level of the Russian state.
The question now is whether the attack on Alexei Navalny had similar authorization. This is the politician's last video in which he urged Russians to vote against candidates supporting Vladimir Putin in local elections. After Salisbury, over 150 Russian diplomats and intelligence officers were expelled from 29 countries. But Navalny was attacked on Russian soil, and that will weigh on the Germans, who won't know as much as the British did, as they discuss within the EU and NATO what they're calling an appropriate and joint response. Tonight, Moscow is accusing Berlin of failing to cooperate and calling on the Germans to exchange information. In the meantime, Alexei Navalny remains on a ventilator in intensive care. His doctors say his health is improving, but it's clear he's paid a heavy price for being so outspoken.
Well, earlier I spoke to a Russian opposition politician, Vladimir Karamurza, who himself suffered a poisoning attack, and to David Omand, a former director at GCHQ, now a commentator on intelligence and security matters. I started by asking, what was the intention of the attack on Mr Navalny?
I have absolutely no doubt that the intention was to kill, and it's the grace of God and the different circumstances that came together. For example, I've myself taken several times a flight between Moscow and Tomsk. It's a 4-hour flight. Alexei Navalny would not have made that flight alive had the pilot decided not to make an emergency landing in Omsk, and there the ambulance took Navalny to hospital. Incidentally, during my second poisoning in 2017, it was a very similar circumstance too. I was actually on the way to the airport, and it was actually supposed to be a transatlantic flight from Moscow to Washington. There's no way I would have survived that. So sometimes fate can interfere with the plans of these murderers.
Do you have any doubt who is behind this? I know that Navalny had a long list of enemies.
Well, no, his enemy number one, number two, and number three is Vladimir Putin. And I wish I could say I was surprised when I heard the announcement from Berlin today, but unfortunately I wasn't, and neither were any of my colleagues and friends in the Russian opposition and the Russian democratic movement. You know, there's a long and growing list of political opponents of Vladimir Putin who have suffered these attacks or attempts or who have been plain murdered, not only with poisoning. You know, 5.5 years ago, Russian opposition leader Boris Nemtsov was literally gunned down in front of the Kremlin wall in Moscow. And to this day, the Russian authorities at the highest level continue to shield and protect the organizers and masterminds of his assassination.
David Oman, do you have any doubt that the Kremlin was behind this?
No. I think the existence of traces of Novichok, which is only available to the Russian state, I think makes it really highly implausible that there could be any other explanation. But of course, what we must now expect from Moscow is their standard denials, accusations that they're being victimized by the West and making these accusations, fake news, all sorts of alternative explanations will all be pumped out to try and create confusion and give an impression that the truth will never be known. But
Vladimir, the fact that they've got, if it was them, the fact that they've gone after the most prominent opposition figure in Russian politics, the second most popular leader, according to opinion polls in Russia itself, after Vladimir Putin. What does that tell you about the threat that he posed to them and the kind of things that they're prepared to do in order to get rid of that threat?
I think, first of all, it says quite a lot about the propaganda nonsense that Vladimir Putin is so popular among Russian citizens and he's not afraid of any kind of opposition. You know, if he really were that popular, why would he be so afraid of facing a competitive election? Why does he keep banning his opponents from the ballot? Why does he keep muzzling the media? Why does he keep, beating down peaceful demonstrators on the streets? No, this is a regime that is afraid for its existence, and rightfully so, because if you look at the state of Russian public opinion, especially over the past several months, you will see that it has markedly shifted from what it had been before, even if we believe those previous figures.
David Oman, the last time we had a Novichok poisoning on British soil in Salisbury, there was a very robust diplomatic response. Dozens of Russian diplomats, so-called diplomats, were expelled from numerous Western capitals. And here they are, apparently, allegedly, doing it again. So what response can we come up with? Can governments in London or in Berlin or in Washington come up with that will actually dissuade Vladimir Putin, if he was behind this, from doing these kind of things again?
The Salisbury attack was a wake-up for the international community. It was the use of a prohibited nerve agent on NATO soil, used in Salisbury. One innocent citizen died as a result of this. Now, the British government orchestrated a major international response to that atrocity. 150 Russian intelligence officers were identified and expelled from over 30 countries, including more than 60 from the United States itself. Now, that's one set of signals. Sanctions are another set of signals. But from the outside, there are clearly limits. Well, there are clearly limits. They send messages. They will, I think, show that such acts don't make Russia look strong in the global world, in the international opinion. They make Russia look like a tin pot dictatorship run by a dictator for life. Is that really the impression that the president wishes to create? One reading of what has been going on over the last decade is Russia trying to get back its place at the top international table. Well, this is not the way to do it.
Okay. Got to leave it there, gentlemen. Vladimir Kara-Murza and David Oman, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.